someone's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to another episode and another world, another country. This is Without a Country, and we're closer to it than ever, guys. No, and I mean that no matter who you voted for, right? Just the separateness that I think was revealed in this election is, yet another wake up call. But we move on. A lot of people are kind of posting and saying, you take a day to mourn, but then that's kind of all you get. I certainly agree with that sentiment. But I have a little more time to lay around, I think, than the average person. Just because I guess if I don't want to work, I don't have. I mean, eventually I have to work. Let's not be crazy here. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone who joined us on the very long all-night live stream yesterday. Even though the outcome of the election for myself and many was not fun, I think the show itself was fun and interesting, and I was so surprised by the amount of different political views and ages and races of people that showed up in the audience at New York Comedy Club Upper West Side last night. And believe me, if you're watching the live stream, I don't know if you could tell just how heated things got between members of the audience at times, but like I truly had to mediate hardcore to stop what at one moment I definitely thought something was going to get thrown across the room. And I said, listen, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I'm sad, I feel betrayed, but I don't I don't think that throwing shit at each other or screaming is going to change anything. I think, running for a local office and passing legislation, that's less fun. That is less fun. It's so much more fun to throw a stapler across the room than it is to Google how to run for a local political office and then run for the local political office. Believe me, when I was Googling how to run for a local political office and like the steps towards starting a political career this morning, I would have much rather thrown a stapler at, just whoever was in my vicinity. But that's not the answer, okay? So yeah, welcome. I wanted to start the show. So many people are addressing the nation today, and I thought, you know what? I'm also going to address the nation. I'm going to address the Without a Country nation. So these are my thoughts, all right? This afternoon, because I'm honest, I woke up and congratulated men on once again showing us women that they do not give a shit about us outside of a direct relationship to them, aka daughter, mom, sister, wife, and even at wife, I'm often not sure if their care extends beyond our ability to procreate with the assistance of their seed. I was not being snarky in this congratulations. I truly wanted to tip my hat because this seems to be the point men want to make. They make it time and time again, and we hear you. We hear you loud and clear because we are listening. You either do not hear us or, more likely, choose not to hear us when we ask for a simple bodily autonomy, whether that means making our own reproductive health choices or having the ability to seek justice when we are molested, assaulted, sexually and physically, or raped. Strange because it seems like you can hear us just fine when we ask you what you'd like for dinner or tell you that you're certainly a better man than your father was. Obviously, a message put out into the public like this will be responded to with vitriol, but it's basically a trap. A trap to catch the men who are guilty of my accusations. Men who do not feel this way would find no urge in their heart to protest my anguish. And if they do, well, then they are outing themselves as people who only performatively hear women to get fucked. Feeble pick-me boys. So many men responded with different versions of Attacking men put you, leftist woman, in this situation. When will you ever learn your lesson? Ah, yes. My skin tingles with the familiar feeling of infantilization. I am but a wee woman who needs to be educated on how to behave by men on the internet who are less educated than me, make less money than me, are less good looking than me, have found less success in their careers than me, have found less success in their personal lives than me, and most notably, have less empathy than me. Men love to dangle this promise of being rewarded for being on their side. But we know that not to be true. We know that historically, whether we go along with men or revolt against them, we are punished. It is not as if when we stay quiet, we are offered rewards. For years, we stayed quiet as we were offered less money for the same amount and caliber of work. We stayed quiet as we were sexually harassed at work. We stayed quiet as we were raped by prominent politicians, movie stars, and musicians. We stayed quiet as we were physically abused in our homes. For all those years that we did not publicly criticize you, those were our rewards. So now we revolt and the outcome is the same, but at least we are being honest with ourselves and the world. Better to be treated like shit while having our integrity to soothe us. And yes, a staggering number of women voted against women. And I do find this alarming. But it also reminds me how powerful and deeply ingrained misogyny is in this country. While it is not an excuse, I do feel sympathy for these women because I truly believe that they are victims, that they so deeply yearn for the approval of men, whether it be the men in their lives or the man upstairs, that they would turn their backs on their sisters. But if today, after a rigorous campaign with little notice, Kamala Harris was able to stand in front of the American people with a full heart and the motivation to move forward, then surely so can the rest of us. That's what a good leader does. She motivates you to be the best version of yourself, not unapologetically the worst. I know it is easy to feel powerless, but that is when you are most susceptible to bad ideas. Whether that bad idea is as simple and final as I give up, or as complicated as maybe this rich businessman felon rapist will be the one to make me and my middle-class family feel seen in this country. I love the idea of trying something new. I think that idea is bipartisan. But in capitalist America, letting a rich white man lead the way is, quite frankly, hack. Congratulations to Donald Trump. May the God so many of your followers swear by keep us all safe. That is my thought, my long thought for today. I felt that necessary.
God forgive them. They don't know what they're doing.
And now we move on with the show. We move on with our lives. But what we don't do is what they want us to do, to give up, to say they won, to, cry and pout, or to simply consistently engage in self-care. We must continue to engage in revolution. And I know that's not easy on everyone's mental health, but you know what? Everyone doesn't have the luxury of looking after their own mental health. So maybe we need to suck it up a little bit. I also, I also just want to point out, if you voted for Donald Trump, cool. You won. Not only did Donald Trump win the Electoral College, he won the popular vote. We saw the numbers. The numbers are there. We accept the results of this election. But I just saw so many fucking sore winners online today. I don't understand what will heal the anger in your hearts. You got what you wanted. Why are you still lashing out in the way that you are? It is absurd to me. It really is absurd to me. You are both sore losers and sore winners. How is this possible? What will make you happy? Please email me, withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. You're angry when you lose and you're seemingly angry when you win. Why are you so angry? What is going on? How can we fix this? I extend my hand to you because something is broken. All right. We have obviously today is, the positive news about Donald Trump winning in such a landslide is that we actually can have a more productive show today, right? Obviously I, had only a few hours to prepare for this, but I thought this would be more of a we still don't know yet show. I was not surprised that Donald Trump won. I wouldn't have been surprised if Kamala won. I wouldn't be surprised at either outcome. I thought it was going to be very close, right? What I was surprised about was by how much Donald Trump won, and that opens up so many other conversations, including the pointlessness of looking at polls. What? What? Why do we even waste our time? Why is being a pollster even an occupation? I think it's at this point it's like a joke. It's like being a meteorologist, or like, are you just guessing? I mean, are you just guessing? So,
Hey, Corinne?
yes.
I know you haven't given out the live call-in number.
Yeah.
But your top of the show speech has got a lot of people in the chat fired up, and one of them is on the line right now.
Is it a man?
No, it's a woman.
Okay. Because I did forget to say, and this is my show, so I fucking do what I want. We're not accepting male callers today. Obviously, Mike is always allowed to speak.
I'm the only dude allowed to
You're
speak
the
on the
only
show?
dude allowed to speak, and Mike openly voted for Donald Trump. And we can, talk about that, whatever. If you want to ask a question, you can ask a question through Mike. I'm not accepting male callers today. This is a day when I don't want to hear. I'm not interested in hearing from men. Everyone has days like this. Whether you're every woman, I think pretty much across the board has days like this. This includes married women in relationships. As I was saying on the pre-show, my boyfriend is one of the kindest men I've ever met in my entire life. And he was being so kind and so gentle today. And it still, quite frankly, pained me to look at him. and I know he sensed that, and he gave me space. And I feel so, I wasn't mean to him or anything. I just was like, I can't, I'm so angry. But yeah, no male callers allowed. And I don't care if that makes you mad. I don't care if that makes you shut it off. I mean, maybe just act like an adult and listen to a woman speak for a fucking second. You have 4 years of a male president, okay? So maybe you can take 2 hours of a female hosted show. But yeah, so I will accept this female caller. Hello, are you on? Who is this?
Hi, Corinne?
Yeah, hi. Sorry, Mike didn't tell me your name. Who's calling?
Hi, my name's Amanda. I'm calling from Kentucky.
Hi, Amanda from Kentucky. Thanks for calling in. What can I help you with?
I just wanted to piggyback off of what you were saying, basically about, thanks a lot, men. And something that you said a couple of weeks ago, because it's kind of been sort of rattling around in my head. I remember you asking or saying something like, surely there's not that many men that really just couldn't stomach voting for a woman, and that's what the hang up would be.
I think I said it like I believed it, but I was still confused how that could be true in 2024. Do you remember the tone I said it with? Because I'm like, yeah, I'm not surprised that I'm disappointed, but not surprised. I suppose is my stance on that. I say so much during the week between my two podcasts that you guys sometimes have to remind me what I said. I black out sometimes,
No, for sure. I've thought about that.
Yeah.
Kind of in my personal life and my friends and who they're married to and my father and my brothers.
Yeah.
And, in Kentucky versus you in New York, and no, they couldn't stomach voting for a woman.
Yeah.
That actually absolutely is true. And I live in one of the 2 blue counties in Kentucky. So I actually live in a blue city.
Right.
There truly is 2 blue counties. So of the places around me that do vote blue, I'm in it. But kind of everywhere in a 40-mile radius is gonna be real, gun heavy. Yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
they cheat on their wives and the wives look the other way. Like, this is a
Well,
very
in their defense, that happens amongst liberals too. That's a whole other issue, and one that we tackle more on Guys We Fucked. But yeah, looking the other way, just as I posted a joke the other day that I think a favorite pastime for men, no matter what political party you belong to, is sexual assault. I think a favorite pastime for women, no matter what political party you belong to, is looking the other way while men exhibit bad behavior. And I think that's something that we all need to correct. That's again a bipartisan issue if the party is
fair.
women. But where do you think this just inability to stomach voting for a woman comes from where you are?
I don't know. I mean, the more I was thinking about it, I'm like, they don't treat us well, period. Just like you were saying, like, we're breeders and we'll make you dinner. But yeah, I mean, when I look around, I'm like, yeah, I see people cheating on their wives and like barely helping with the chores or whatever. That's the same thing that we always complain about. It's the same story over and over again. I'm like, yeah, when I look around, I don't see like mutual respect or partnership for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, I'm not trying to overly generalize. Occasionally, one will slip through the cracks, and I'm like, oh, there's an example of a good one. Yay!
Right.
But it's so rare. So when I'm like, yeah, they don't seem to respect us in general, how would we think that we could send a figurehead to lead the country? What were we thinking?
Yeah, and I was thinking about, why I, a woman who until I was in my late teens, early 20s, was surrounded by nothing but kind men, and I know I am in the minority there. Like, why am I seemingly angrier than women who have had bad experiences since childhood with men? And I was like, well, that's because that was the norm. So it's not going to stick out. For me, men behaving in this way sticks out like a sore thumb because both my grandfathers, my father, my brother, I was treated so kindly and beyond that gently, which I think is even more foreign of a concept for many men. And these are men, like it's not like I was. These are not like effeminate men either. These were strong men, but gentlemen. And so I think that's why I'm so angry, because it's just like I am used to a certain treatment from men. And as soon as I went out and, came to New York City and lived on my own, I immediately experienced, I think, what most women experience since childhood, which is not being listened to and not being treated kindly by men. And that's why I'm like, well, I'm pissed. This is not the service I am used to,
Yeah.
And so it makes sense, because I really want to understand why so many women voted for Donald Trump, and I think it's just because they weren't treated kindly by men. So the second best thing is to be patted on the back by men. And I think that's what you get when you share political views. It is this this pick me kind of girl syndrome. Yeah.
For sure.
I understand. I think as a female comedian is a really great person to understand that, because to get time on comedy shows and podcasts, so often, especially in the beginning of your career, your two choices are either to kind of like go along with the guys' jokes, which you're often going to be the butt of, and kind of sit there and laugh as like misogyny passes as humor, or you get known as the squeaky wheel, the shrew, the snowflake, whatever it is, and get in a big fight once on a podcast and then aren't invited back again and are attacked for years on the internet, hypothetically.
Well, that's like the same. It's like it's a very low key, low level of fawning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you have to go along with it. You have to be one of the boys.
Right. Right.
Whatever. We're all wearing these masks just to fit into this stupid ass culture. What do we do?
I know. I know. I know. Well,
Well,
I'm about to pick up a copy of How to Be a Politician for Dummies, and then we'll roll up our sleeves
yeah.
and work from there. I don't know if
Yeah, we're
if that's
not
a real
giving up.
book, but if there is such a book, I will buy it.
Like you're doing the Lord's work if there is such a thing. I mean, well, you know, the Wiccans work. I
Well,
was very upset the witchcraft did not work last night.
you
I
know
will say
what?
that.
You know what? I was thinking about that too because God, tarot is one thing that does give me hope. Side note: if people didn't watch last night's show, I did a tarot reading for the outcome of the election. What I will say yet is Donald Trump is the president elect, right? He's not the president yet, and a lot of times the problem I have with tarot is that I understand what the cards meant later. Like it's my moral, it's my human bias, my mortal realm bias that is wrongly interpreting it. So I pulled the Justice card and the Star card, and I feel like that could mean different things. Like that was my version of justice, but I am not the universe, and I guess we will see the universe's version of justice play out, whatever that is. And the Star card to me is just like hope, and I think Kamala maybe finding her place in the political world wherever that is. But justice can be served so many ways. Like this would be short-term justice if Kamala won the election, but what does long-term justice look like? I mean, I think it can look like Trump passing away from natural causes, from age, and JD Vance stepping in, and maybe not going the way people like, or justice could go as Trump does remain president for the next 4 years and really shows his followers that he doesn't give a shit about them. So I think that justice can mean also those things, but we gotta wait.
Sure.
We will see,
and
though.
I keep telling myself, he kept saying, I'm going to lock her up. I am going to lock her up. And then when he got in office, he didn't even try to lock her up. So, there's a lot of hot air.
Yeah. And hopefully it's that, but we'll see how his first hour goes. It seems like he has a lot on his schedule for the first hour of his presidency. So expensive first hour.
Yes, very busy.
All right. Thank you so much for calling. Appreciate you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. Before we go any further, the number is in the chat. Mike, what is the number if people want to call in?
It's a landline. We already actually have two other callers waiting. 573-427-5463. I will be live screening your calls, and I'll put you on hold until Corinne's ready to get to you.
All right, cool. And then before we go any further, I do want to shout out the endless support from my Patreons. I get several new members every week, and it makes me so happy to see those emails in the Without a Country inbox. I sincerely appreciate you. And like, for example, last night's show, I spent a lot of money to make last night's live stream incredible, including all the talent I had to pay. We had Alex Scarlato, one of the former producers of the show, come in to make the live stream extra crispy and wonderful. Mike's on the show. All these costs, they really add up. So that's the kind of thing that your money is going towards. It's all going towards this show. It's not just like going to send me to Costa Rica. So shout out to Dick.
You deserve it though.
Well, I had a lot of expenses this year, so no trip this year. I went to Danny Polishchuk's wedding in Hawaii. That was my little trip this year. So shout out to Dictator Hannah Pendergrass, my capitalist pigs, Lauren Manu, Carrie, Caroline Bonner, Erica Backus, Lisa Ashbacher, Barbara Mondragon, Delaney Muncie, Randy Peterson, Tegan, McKenna Hansen, Leah M. Ellers, Laura Lynn Pearson, Christopher Fanguy, Sarah Norris Mark, Hale Stiers, EMCP333, Camilla Driggs, Jenny Lynn, Carolyn, Katie Robbins, Hannah Ronaldo, Jennifer Daly, Catherine Best, Tim Ackerman, Boo Batsy, Lakin Keen, Lil Floha, Jesse Pagrain, Audra Williams, Crystal Schmidt, Shelby Snyder, Michael Fow, Amber Christensen, Talene Georgian, Lila Lee Soley, Jasmine Grant, Bridget, Luke, Marisa James, Truggle, Brittany Gustus, Alex Hart, Sierra Matara, and the cuties, Elizabeth Snell, Emma Flowers, Emily, Karen Denise, Amir Hassan, Elisa McCall, Long Arms Length, Sophia Tauber, Gemma James, Miranda, Emily Eckelberger, Nicole Perks, Rebecca _99, Cavs 138, Zoe Ross, Annie Green, Heidi Lundquist, Nicole, Carl Murphy, Margarita Kranova, Beth Brunner, Lauren Moorkill, Chris Gordon, Tori Colster, Desiree Cotunio, Kristen Hood, Sammy Lane, Ms. Mac, Emily LaFontano, Joshua Callahan, and Fright Lab. I sincerely appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone who listens. But the Patreons that you are for me, like your money, it's like, you know, when you make a donation, this donation is going straight to the source, and you are donating directly to helping people critically think and access news sources that they might have otherwise turned their nose up at. So thank you so much. And real quick before we get to these calls, I also want to get through the enemy of the state. I have two enemies of the state this year, one individual person and one group of people, because why the fuck not? I'm on a fucking tear. I am actually surprised what a bad mood I'm in, because like we went through this before. I was prepared to lose. I think I wasn't prepared for Kamala to lose again by this much and this quickly. I think that's what really pisses me off. All right, so the enemy of the state this week I am giving to Joe Rogan.
Enemy of the state.
Who's been very good to me in my career, but I would be a fucking pick-me girl if just because he was good to me, if I gave him a pass for not being good to women overall. I'm not here for it. I think endorsing someone like the day before or a couple days before the election is a bitch-ass move. If you were for Trump, you should have been for him a long fucking time ago and not snuck that in. And my second enemy of the state, or enemies of the state, are people who spitefully didn't vote for Kamala because they didn't feel her stance on Palestine and Israel was good enough. Okay.
Enemy of the state.
I saw someone who I really like and I really believe to be an empathetic person post something in her stories that was like, you know, you said that you could do it without Muslims and Arabs, so we let you, right? Number one, I never heard anyone say you could do it without Muslims and Arabs. Obviously, that's why Michigan, everyone was so focused on Michigan. So number one, never heard anyone fucking say that. So I don't know where you're getting that from. Maybe one blog post somewhere on the internet. And then number two, like, okay, so like, to me, it's just like you let your spite, you chose your own spite before your fellow countrymen and women. Like, that's what was more important to you, like being right or proving a point. So you didn't vote for Kamala, who certainly is going to have a more pro-Palestine stance than Donald Trump, who is literally best fucking friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. I mean, did you guys see this? I posted it in my Instagram stories, but this is crazy. Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu, speaking of pick-me girls, posted a congratulations online. And if you didn't see it, it says this. This is from Benjamin Netanyahu. It says, "Dear Donald and Melania Trump, congratulations on history's greatest comeback. Your historic return to the White House offers a new beginning for America and a powerful recommitment to the great alliance between Israel and America. This is a huge victory. In true friendship, yours, Benjamin and Sarah Netanyahu." So great. You sat this one out, and now the most pro-Israel guy ever got elected. Great job. You really proved your point. You proved that your spite is more important than the children of Gaza that you care so much about, or that you say that you care so much about. Fuck that, man. Fuck that. All right. But, you know, again, we must I love that Kamala said, I don't know if you guys watched her concession speech. Man, she was like bouncy. Good for her, man. Good for her. I don't know where she mustered that from, but good on her. And I love that she said we must accept the results of this election. Yeah, good for you. Good for fucking you. All right. What are the people calling about on the line, Mikey?
So I have Miranda from Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And then I have another caller from California. And they're both just fired up about, I think, still from the intro. They've been on the hold for a while.
Sure, let's do it. I love women callers, and I love that they called organically without me having to ask women to call in. I feel like I'm always even in during the live show last night, there was like 3 men who just passed the mic back and forth to one another, and again, welcome for men to talk any day except for today. But the room was, there was more women there was a lot of men in the room, but there was more women than men, and I'm just like, I want speak up. So this is our caller from Pennsylvania. What's her name?
Miranda.
I'm sorry you said that. Hi, Miranda from Pennsylvania. You're on Without a Country.
Hey, Corinne.
Hi.
So I was just calling. I was going to kind of pose an existential question for you,
Sure.
but as Pennsylvania is like a huge state, and you just said you have no idea why women voted for him. Well, I know a lot of women that voted for him, and I can tell you about it, and it's scary.
I mean, I have some ideas. Like it's more like I understand like the reasons that people are giving me on paper, or that the reasons that women gave me at the Trump rally. But it just seems like there has to be something deeper. But yeah, I especially love hearing from people from swing states or red states on this show. So, which is most of the country, as we saw on the map last night. So yes, let me know your thoughts.
Well, I mean, my personal thoughts kind of almost like entirely reside with your personal thoughts. And I've lived in Pittsburgh for the last 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in Philly the last 2, and then I lived in the middle of absolute nowhere for the rest of my life. And and it is, every time that I've ever tried to educate or sway any of the women that I know, I get he's a rapist, guys. What's going on? And they're like, well, the Democrats are rapists too. And I go, okay, well then what about the environment and that stuff? And they go, oh, well, my family fracks. And I go, oh, okay, but Allentown's on fire. And no one really cares.
Yeah.
What I really wanted to ask you was something that was I overheard today while I was just out and about in my daily life, and it was this man who was speaking about, in a nutshell, it was there was no empathy in this election, I feel like, and I felt like a lot of women would have been empathetic to each other, and I thought there would be more of, I guess, a presence. And I wanted to ask you, and by empathy I mean by voting for who you voted for, you weren't protecting you were protecting someone else,
Mm-hmm.
or some entity in which you cared about. And
Yeah.
the question was kind of posed in front of me, where it was well, why would anybody do that? That's not what the vote is about. The vote is about you. And
Is it? That's certainly not how I vote. That the vote is personally about me, and I have a 16-foot mural of myself in my apartment. So.
I love that. I've never thought like that either. And Corinne, honest to God, I kind of gaslit myself. I was like, are you supposed to have no empathy?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't. What the hell is going on?
Yeah. That's how how I feel about because God, I thought about this so much since I went to bed last night. I was up till 4:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, and then when I finally got out of bed, I'm just walking to Dunkin' and back and forth and just thinking about this. And yeah, I thought about that a lot, and I think you do start voting more for yourself or your own family unit when you have a family. I think it is single people who are more voting for the world, because it's when you're single, there's more an anything is possible. And this is not to say that one, I actually don't think one, this is not to say like, oh, I don't understand. Like I do understand when you have a family, raising a human being, I would imagine would take pretty much all your time and energy. And it's so hard to make sure just one individual
Yeah.
grows up to be the kind of person you hope them to be. So I get that, but it's like we're being sold so hard this notion that family is the way to go and the thing to prioritize by the right. But in that, they are making it seem like you must abandon your fellow countrymen and women. And so it's really hard for me to grapple with that because I understand that you don't have the time for both. And one of the big decisions that or the big points of me most likely not having kids is because I just don't feel like I would be able to give the time and energy to my community. And I think that's probably how seeing as the past 39 years have gone, that I would be most valuable as a human on this planet. But it's just like, is there a middle ground to this? There has to be, where you can raise an individual in your own home, but still care about people outside your family unit, but we're not seeing that.
No, I know. I completely agree. I feel like the world that like I wish that we lived in was one where we had, well, it would be euphoric. But in this euphoric world, our government is so good that the people vote for themselves, vote for the other people, because then the government takes care of them too. And it is a big pay it forward cycle. But like that's not how the world works, so I know I'm just a dreamer.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, one of the reasons I know a lot of people were kind of like not excited about voting for Joe Biden, but I didn't mind at all voting for Joe Biden because I think coming off that Donald Trump presidency, I was like maybe a more centrist, centrist, and maybe a more centrist president, is exactly what the doctor ordered to stop us from being at one another's throats. But that obviously that didn't work. We're seemingly more at each other's throats than ever, because when people make the promise to be a president to all people, I hope that to be true. That's what I want. I don't want Republicans to be unhappy or feel unfulfilled in their lives. I don't want MAGA people to feel that way. I really, really don't. But I don't know but it seems like so many people on both the right and the left feel joy in watching the other side fail. And I don't, I mean, I guess it was like that ex-boyfriend vibe. It's kind of the same energy of when like you had an ex-boyfriend and you love watching them fail or get really fat or be or marry someone uglier than you know? But I don't have that anymore. I just kind of don't care. What?
Or the trifecta.
Or the trifecta. Yeah. And it feels like that's the energy that both parties have for each other. I was just so stunned today when MAGA people were still coming at Democrats. It's like, just let us mourn in peace. You won. Go celebrate.
It's like 24 hours and then I'll be chill.
Yeah. Just go have a great day. Because that's the thing. Like, I know if Democrats won, we would just be having a good day. We'd be at brunch, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for your time, Corinne. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for calling in. All right. And then our next caller from California. Oh, man, I've consumed so much caffeine to get through today. I'm about to get the migraine of a lifetime. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, you're calling from California. What's your name?
My name's Heather.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for calling Without a Country. What would you like to say today?
I mean, kind of piggybacking off of how she opened up the show. So my husband has also been very supportive of everything today. But coming from somebody who has been sexually assaulted and has had to go through all of that, there's just a lot of feels that get brought up. And then I also have a 3-year-old son, so trying to have him follow in his father's footsteps of supporting women.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's me. You said she, but I'm like, it's me. It's Corinne. So you can expand on any of the thoughts you want to make regarding those. I love all those topics that you just brought to the table.
Beautiful. Yeah, I mean, what you were talking about, like how even not wanting to look at your boyfriend, even though him being so supportive in everything, I'm just like, yeah, my husband held me as I cried most of today and got out all of my feelings. And I was just like, I know you want to help, but there's nothing you can do in this moment besides just be here and listen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It was like I mean, all of New York City was very quiet today. My girlfriend texted me and she was like, I took the subway and it was so quiet. And she said something really interesting to me. She's like, I couldn't even make eye contact with people because I felt so ashamed. And that was so
Yeah.
interesting to me. I was like, once again, she's a woman. She went out. She voted for Kamala. She had hope. She's in a liberal city. And she is on the subway looking down as if she has something to feel ashamed about. And it is, and that text really like shook me. I've been thinking about that for the past several hours.
Yeah, I agree. It's been really weird. And especially like for me, most of my family voted for Trump, and it was, an ongoing battle. And even my grandma, she couldn't like completely fill it out on her own. And so I was helping her, and it was that battle. But it was just like, what I've gone through as your daughter, and you're still like, nope, don't care, here we go. And everybody was just like, oh, well, taxes and my bank account and my 401k. I was like, okay, so there's a price on rights. Cool, got it.
Right. I'm also curious to see if especially with Elon Musk's excitement and partnership with Donald Trump for this term, if the middle and lower middle class even see the fiscal rewards that were at the top of their reasons for voting for him list. I'm truly curious for that. About that, because I mean I do think for sure the middle class needs to be concentrated on, and I mean needs to be more defined. The middle class almost as has been happening for years, it exists less and less every year. The average cost of a home in America is like $400,000 or something crazy like that. So I also want to see that. And listen, I agree there is no price on rights for me, but I mean, suppose that's easier for me to say. But I would have, I was broke not that long ago, so it was easy for me to say then.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. But yeah, it's just it's frustrating, it's sad, and then especially I know you were just talking about like there's more single people voting for other people, but like with our household, my husband's very supportive. We have a almost 3-year-old son, and trying to raise him to respect women and do good and do well and everything like that. It's such a different vibe, and especially like my husband's also a comedian. He introduced me to your show.
Oh, cool.
And also just like him trying to use his platform to do good and do well too. It's such an interesting time, especially even like for Hollywood and all this.
Yeah, no, it is. And I was also thinking about like all the celebrity endorsements, which I think we saw more on the left than on the right, because, artists just tend to be a little bit more liberal, whereas, different, like athletes and stuff tend to skew a little bit more Republican. And I was thinking, I'm like, I don't know that that's, there's a part of me that thinks that we're in a culture now where that hurts more than it helps. Like, I know we have the things where like Taylor Swift last time, and then this time Sabrina Carpenter was at the top of the list of people who helped get so many more people to register to vote. But these left endorsements from, Cardi B and Jennifer Lopez, although I loved and appreciated them, I don't really know that they made anyone who was going to vote for Kamala, like who wasn't going to vote for Kamala. I think it was just kind of like an echo chamber. And especially because, all these people are rich, and people already feel so separated and detached from rich people. I don't know the answer. I don't have the stats, but I do wonder if that's even helpful anymore, or if, celebrities should stop doing endorsements.
I was pulling up Instagram the other night, and it was like Fat Joe, endorsing her, and I'm just like, what a weird time.
Yeah.
To just pull up social media, and you do have all these celebrities, speaking for different politicians. It's such a weird time for the country on top of Hollywood right now.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm always, people just don't like being told what to think, mostly. I mean, obviously then there's like a cult going on, but I do, that's why I always try to, even though I'm, nowhere near Cardi B, I do try to make it more in like an encouraging to register to vote. And I know that some of the people that I encouraged to register to vote and or to vote at all this year did vote for Donald Trump, and I don't regret that. I truly mean it when I say that I want to know how people think and who they think the best leader for the country is. I think we need to take the temperature of the country. And I think the more people that vote, the more accurate the temperature. And we can't fully fix the problem until we know how the majority feels. And we know how the majority feels now. And at least
Exactly.
So now we can figure it out from there.
Well, and I think that was also part of like Kamala's like thing was just like, if I do get in, I want to sit at the table and I do want to talk to people that have different opinions and see where we go from here.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that didn't speak to as many people as we would like it to.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that like a prosecutor was still too liberal for people. I go, what do you want here?
Yeah.
Too liberal? I go, too liberal?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
Yeah.
I don't find her to be that liberal at all.
Right. But I think another thing today that like brought so much pain, at least in my heart, was like reading so many things that they're trying to drop all the charges against him because he got elected. And I'm just like, what message does that send people that you can literally get away with anything as long as you get to that level?
Yeah, as long as you're in a position of power. Well, in my opinion, that was his number one reason for running again, was to get those charges dropped. That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Again, like I think that I don't think Donald Trump's like against Democrats. I think Donald Trump's just out for himself. That's my issue with Donald Trump. I think he's just out for himself. And if he truly was like really for half the country, like if I really think he had a plan to make half the country better, this would make that would make this loss easier for me to digest. But I truly think he is out for himself and like a few friends, Elon, Benjamin, who Kim Jong-un, I don't know, Yeah. I don't think he gives a shit about Melania, nor do I think Melania gives a shit about him. But yeah,
No.
I mean,
Oh, no.
just walking around
That's
with
a loveless
sunglasses
marriage.
on? What?
Yeah.
Oh, go out.
Yeah.
God. I want to meet her.
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think everything, he was just in it for himself. I completely agree. And I think that's the interesting thing. Even I was like writing down different prices of things right now as far as like gas and eggs and milk and all these things. I'm like, okay, if you guys really believe that he's going to change things for the better in 4 years, let's compare notes.
Yeah, I love that idea. People also don't seem to not understand the concept of time and how long it takes to get things done. So that many times, when a new president gets into the White House, it's going to take a couple years for us to see the effects of the policies that they instate. Like, it's not immediate.
Yeah, exactly. But unfortunately, not everybody remembers government. So
no, they don't. Well, Schoolhouse Rock is available on YouTube, guys. Thank you so much for calling.
Sorry, I hung up on her a little bit early. That's my bad.
All right. Well,
sorry,
Heather.
We have a VIP on the line.
Who's the VIP? Elon Musk?
Bigger.
Who?
The one and only dictator without a country, Hannah Pendergrass.
Oh, Hannah! Yes, of course. Let Hannah through immediately. I heard some beeping over there.
And now you hear Hannah.
I know. I feel like this is like a mental health support line today. Hello, Hannah, the dictator herself. Good to hear from you.
Hey, Corinne.
What's
Good to
up?
talk to you.
Of course.
Not much. Mike said asked in the comments if anybody cried today over the results, and I said yes.
Are you trolling? Are you trolling my wackos on YouTube, Michael?
He sure is, and I'm calling the trolls.
I would never. There was somebody in the chat who was saying, they was making fun of the concept of anyone cried, and I asked in sincerity, did anyone actually cry at the results?
Yeah.
And then a bunch of people said that they did. And I'm like, these actually sound like interesting stories. People who I'd like to hear from today. Someone who does have an actual emotional response and could use someone like you to talk to.
I also don't, I do not understand why it's funny if someone cries. Why is that funny? Okay, Hannah, talk to us.
I'm proud of the fact that I cried. I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
Mike thinks it's, but I'm crying for obviously a lot of different reasons, but I posted something on my my hair account, and a video of me like no makeup crying, like just speaking out to a lot of my clients because I'm often place that they go to tell, shit that's going on at home. And with Donald Trump being back in office, like, I'm worried for their safety.
Yeah.
And it's a bleak day, and I'm gonna cry about it. So
yeah, no, I was surprised by my own reaction because like I said, I was fully prepared for either outcome. And it was just really like a punch in the gut how quickly and by such a landslide that we got the results last night. And I didn't cry last night, but I mean, I think I don't know if it was like I cry a lot of times out of frustration. That's like a big reason I cry. And I didn't like sob, but I did definitely shed a few tears today. And I don't even really know what the exact impetus was. I think I was just online, and it wasn't specifically because of what Republicans were saying. It was because of what people on every side were saying. I was upset and frustrated by the spite, by the single issue voting, by the inability to see a larger picture, by the selfishness, by the complacency. I was upset by a lot of things today.
Yeah, I agree on all accounts, and I'm disappointed with like my age group and the divide between men and women. The guys in their 20s, I mean, they showed out for Trump, like,
yeah,
and just voting Republican like we haven't seen in a while. We're so polarized. And I also really identify with that person who lives in New York, was on the train, just didn't even want to make like eye contact with people. I mean, I'm in Chicago. I work in like a community, sort of like a salon space. So most of the time it's women, but that come through the door. But there's a barber in there and a few people that do like barbering. So, I just, like, the men that came in, I just like had this like hatred, and I know that it's not fair to be directed. I didn't say anything, of course.
Sure.
I'm just pissed off. I feel slighted. I feel, I don't even have words for it most of the time. So
yeah, no, I knew, but I don't think I've ever met a woman, like I said, like no matter what her relationship status is, who doesn't have a day every now and then where she just does not want to hear from men, doesn't want to see men, doesn't want to get. And I mean, I mean, of course there are like the incels, but outside of incels, I don't really think men have days like that. But then again, I don't think a lot of them were listening to begin with. So easy to keep not hearing, Well, thank you so much and thanks for, posting on your work account and owning a business and for being the dictator.
Hey.
Take care. Bye. All right, let's get into some stats. I mean, again, obviously, I mean, I think this was interesting. A lot of people, I don't know that, necessarily pointing out stats and like saying like this group of people is the evil group is necessarily great, but I think it is interesting. So whatever. Again, like if you look at the map and you see how few blue states there are, I mean, what are we working with here? We're working with Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Hawaii, Minnesota, Illinois, New York, Virginia, Vermont, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. That's the blue that we got. Everything else is red, and that's most of the country. When you look at the map, it's most of the country. So yeah, I think that's something to take note of. Not that we didn't know, but I mean, I think it felt, more staggering than in years prior. Per the CNN exit polling, the top two demographics that voted for Kamala Harris are Black women at 92%. Shout out. What I think is interesting about that is, especially with the comments from certain groups of people saying they don't feel heard, like, the comment from the Arabs and Muslims not feeling heard, and perhaps, and I'm not I don't know all, but and perhaps the response to that was not a spiteful not vote. Think of the group of people in this country who is the least respected, the least heard, the most mistreated. It's 100% Black women, 100% Black women, and they still did not turn their backs on us. They still did not turn their backs on us. 92%. That's staggering. So shout out. Consistently. I mean, highest mother mortality rate in a first world nation, and still showed up the fuck up to the polls and said, we want something better. And then second place, Jewish women at 88%. Once again, an argument for why Jewish people actually aren't white. We did show up at 88%. Proud for Kamala Harris. And then honorable mention to the men who showed up for Kamala Harris, Black men at 78%, which I do really want to point out, because even though Donald Trump improved his rating among Black men for this election, and I feel like that got Black men a lot of negative press, you gotta point out 78% of Black men showed up for Kamala Harris, and that's really cool, and we appreciate you. And then 71% of Jewish men showed up for Kamala Harris, so that's really fucking cool. Also, I want to say the Insane Clown Posse showed up for Kamala Harris. So the Violent J, he handed the Juggalo vote to Kamala Harris, and I thought that was pretty fucking cool. So shout out to the ICP. Let's get into some articles. Obviously, again, this is a reaction episode. It's a reaction to the 2024 presidential election. So everything is main story tonight. This first article is from Newsweek. Democrats botched the election, 6 mistakes that led to Trump victory. This is by Khalida Rahman, a national correspondent. In the coming days and weeks, there'll be plenty of finger pointing about what exactly led to Donald Trump's decisive victory in the election. Early this morning, Trump reached the 270 electoral votes needed to win back the White House, a historic comeback for a former president who refused to concede his loss to President Joe Biden 4 years ago, and is accused of inciting an insurrection at the U.S. Capitol in a bid to cling to power. And I'm sure you guys have seen this, information floating around the internet, but the only other president in history to do this, to have this gap term, was President Grover Cleveland of New Jersey. His win over Vice President Kamala Harris, the first woman of color to chop a majority party's ticket, is the second time he has defeated a female opponent in a presidential election after defeating Hillary Clinton in 2016. And as I tweeted earlier today, Donald Trump has only been able to beat girls, which does feel just so Republican. Harris's ascent to the top of the Democratic ticket was unusual. She became the party's nominee after Biden, 81, exited the race, was bullied out in late July amid concerns about his advanced age following a disastrous debate performance against Trump. I do want to step in right now and say that, I heard there's a lot of jokes and memes and stuff floating around the internet that Joe Biden woke up this morning snickering, being, somehow rejoicing in Kamala's loss. And I genuinely do not feel that to be true. Although I do think it took bullying him to get him to step down, I do not think he wanted Kamala to lose. And I do not think he's having some secret party in the White House and rejoicing in her loss. I do not feel that way. But Trump, 78, is now the oldest person elected president. Notably, he improved on his 2020 performance with most demographics to win back several key battlegrounds that he lost to Biden 4 years ago, including Pennsylvania and Georgia. Also, regarding the age, like, yeah, this is super old, but it also makes sense that in 2024, we elect the oldest president ever because of the advancements in healthcare. And, 78 in 2024 is not the same as 78 in 1974. So again, I do want to point out that. Newsweek rounds up 6 moves by the Democrats that may have contributed to Trump's victory. Biden's late exit. Biden decided to drop his bid for re-election and endorse Harris as the Democratic candidate on July 21st, upending the presidential race just over 3 months before Election Day. He bowed out after weeks of unrelenting pressure from fellow Democrats following a stumbling debate performance in June that magnified concerns about his age and ability to beat Trump in November. Some will surely say an earlier exit from the race could have given his replacement extra time to make a case to voters. What I will say is also what could have made things go better is if we didn't publicly, as the Democrats, fucking bully Joe Biden out of it. I also think that could have, I think that could have helped. I think, yes, his stumbling debate wasn't good, but the stats show that debates really don't change people's minds. It's really people who already know who they're voting for, who are watching debates. And that was far enough before the election that people would have forgot about it as long as he patched things up moving forward. As we said, his State of the Union was super good. Or as I said, I thought his performance in the State of the Union was very good. And so, I saw an article today. I don't even know where the fuck it was from. It was at the Cut. Let me see if I saved it. But it was literally basically an attack on Joe Biden that just seemed like absolute nonsense clickbait. Okay, it was from the New Yorker magazine. And the headline was Trump's second term is Biden's real legacy. And in the caption, it says the failure of the Democratic Party to prevent Donald Trump's reelection is a catastrophe of yet to be known proportions. There are plenty of people to blame, starting with the estimated 80 million people who voted for him. Isaac Chutner writes, they have chosen to return to office a man who has already tried to throw out the votes of their fellow citizens once and who would surely have tried to throw them out again if he had lost on Tuesday. Kamala Harris must take a certain amount of responsibility for her truncated, insufficient campaign, he continues. But among Democrats, the blame for Trump's victory overwhelmingly lies with one person, Joe Biden. Indeed, Trump's triumph will be Biden's real presidential legacy. Little of the rest of what he accomplished is likely to survive another Trump term. And I was happy to see that a lot of the comments were kind of like, fuck you. I had to step in and say, I know you need to compete hard for clicks the day after an election, but this is a little much. I just don't think this is what we fucking need right now. And again, and I think we talk about, there's so many pieces of the downfall of the Democratic Party. And I think the main piece is how much we fucking nitpick within our own goddamn party. And 2 people responded to that. Someone said, nailed it. To ignore the buffoonery is the true fault of this article. And then someone said, laughing my fucking ass off. Thank you. But I think that person used my name, which makes me think that they might know me. But anyway, so that's biased. But thank you anyway.
So on that first point, you're saying if Biden had stuck it out and they hadn't bullied him out, you think he had a better shot against Trump than...
Not a better shot, but I just my initial thought, and it's on record here on Without a Country, is that with the time when the bullying started, where we were in the election cycle, it was too close to Election Day to make that change, and I believe that I was right on that. That was my initial thing. And I just do think, especially it was afterwards that I learned more about the statistics and the impact that debates have on voters. And I just think, I agree that debate was an absolute shit show. But much as my stance that if you have a problem in your relationship, you don't turn on your partner in the aisle, in the frozen food aisle in the supermarket. That's what I feel like the Democratic Party did to Joe Biden. They turned on him publicly in the frozen food section of the supermarket. And once the Republicans saw that, there was no way they could unsee that. And so then, yes, once that was out in the open that we were attacking our own party's president, then we had to make the switch. But in that amount of time, what was it? Like we gave, Kamala 3 months to come up with an entire plan for her presidency. And obviously, if you're VP, I'm sure you already, are working on, possibly running for president and what that would look like. But she's sitting there thinking that she's going to be supporting Joe Biden for another 4 years rather than running on her own platform. So she didn't really have the time to do that. I certainly had criticisms of her kind of reiterating the same weak points over and over again, and a lot of her policies and answers to questions being too vague. But I do think she put up with the time that she had and the preparation time that she had and the time that she had to actually campaign. I think she put in a lot of work and did a hell of a job and got some excitement going in the Democratic Party for sure.
But you're saying, so if they never did the bullying, if they just said, hey, it was bad debate performance, but keep on trucking.
I think he would have easily done just as good as Kamala did in this election, which was not impressive.
Huh. Okay.
I don't think it would have been staggering in another, especially because Donald Trump and Joe Biden are so close in age, Because once we stopped bullying Joe Biden about his age, it went immediately to bullying Donald Trump about his age. And I go, okay, I've heard this story before. I just don't think so. Yeah. All right.
So all right, you were on point 1 for that. Are you going to do the rest of that article?
Yeah.
Oh.
Why?
No, I thought you were moving on.
No.
My bad.
No. I just read. I wanted to read the New York Magazine one in the middle of it. So then the second point is no primary contest to replace Biden, which only bothered Republicans. I've yet to meet one Democrat who that bothered. If Biden had exited sooner, Democrats might have held a very brief primary contest to choose a candidate that represented a clear break with the current administration. This I agree with. I don't agree that it was like unethical, because it's the Democrats' choice, and if no Democrats had a problem with, only the members of that party vote in the primary. So if no Democrats had a problem with the way Kamala was chosen, then it's not a problem ethically within the party. That being said, I do agree with this point that perhaps we could have, as a group, if we had more time, chosen a candidate that represented a clear break with the administration. Because what I had, a statistic that I had read last week that I meant to share on this show, but there's a part of me that thinks that my brain purposely forgot because it was a stat that haunted me, was basically like with the approval rating that Joe Biden currently has, historically, a party with a president with that approval rating being as low as his is right now, which is, I don't know, like in the 40s or something, not even that low. It's historically a president from that same party has never been elected. Right. So like we would, with this approval rating for a Democratic president being at the number it is now, historically, we would always opt to go Republican and vice versa. So when when the approval rating for a Republican president is low historically, we then always try something new. It goes along with how we are in America. We want things fast. We have no patience. And again, 4 years seems like a long time. I guess it depends, it's all relative. But it's 4 years is not a very long time to change a country. It's really not. Think back to 4 years ago in your life and how different your life is now. I think some of you probably have drastically different lives, but I think most of you would have liked to see more change in your life. Most of you are looking back at those 4 years going, I wish I had achieved more. I'm not as far along as I hoped I would be, right?
Quick question though, with that primary, if they had held a primary,
Yeah.
wouldn't all the money that was in Biden's coffers be untouchable for the Democrats?
I don't know the answer to that.
Like I know that she got all of Biden's war chests
Okay.
because she was on the same ticket,
Right.
and therefore, like, you know, you were donating to Biden Harris, so Harris was still enough of a person you were donating to.
The
to be able to,
legalities of it, yeah.
Right.
I guess they would have had to go with someone who was independently wealthy, like a Democratic Donald Trump.
so like RFK, who was right there
Uh,
and trying for the Democratic nomination.
I mean, I don't think RFK's stance on abortion would have flew for the Democratic Party, which is why it's so scary that Trump now wants to put him as the head of healthcare, which we'll talk about later. Anyway, so yeah, if Biden had exited sooner, Democrats might have held a very brief primary contest to choose a candidate that represented a clear break with the current administration and appealed to enough voters to defeat Trump. Instead, Democrats coalesced around Harris, and she won the nomination without Democratic voters having a say in a process that some criticized as undemocratic. Harris's running mate choice. This is an interesting point. That I was talked about a little bit on the TV news last night, and I was, again, all of this is stuff that I have, has accumulated over the past, not even 24 hours. So, by picking Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as her running mate, who most of us had never heard of before, Harris sought to ensure the Midwestern states of Michigan and Wisconsin would be safely in her column. But Walz's presence on the ticket appeared to have made little difference. The Harris-Walz ticket failed to win in Wisconsin. And I got to think there's a big part of me that thinks I don't want to say a manlier man, because I feel like being a man is showing empathy. What my definition of a man, but like a more cartoonishly manly man would have been a better choice, especially when you have a woman running for president. And if the reason that you pick aforementioned man is to get the Midwestern vote. I mean, we heard. Not that, not Kentucky is, different, but we heard from that caller from Kentucky, the men in her life and how they feel about women. And is trailing. So the Harris-Walz ticket failed to win in Wisconsin and is trailing Trump in Michigan. Though the race has yet to be officially called, Biden had narrowly carried both states in 2020. And there are still a few states that are counting. I mean, obviously at this point, there's I think like Nevada, is still being counted. I think Maine was still being counted.
It's Nevada, Arizona, Michigan.
Maine too.
I thought Maine was in.
I thought Michigan was in. Maine is the one that remained pale blue on the map. I mean, it was pale blue, and then Nevada and Arizona were pale red. I thought Michigan went to Trump.
No, I'm seeing here 92 reporting for Maine and all 4 electoral votes to Kamala, and then Michigan is in.
Yeah, Michigan's in to Trump, correct?
99% reporting, and he's up by about 80,000. So yeah, they're in.
Yeah. The choice of Walz had also disappointed supporters of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who they thought could have helped Democrats win the election's largest battleground state. Trump won Pennsylvania and its 19 electoral votes this year. You know my stance on that. I don't think putting a Jewish person on that ticket would have helped. Angering Arab Americans, Harris's defeat comes after concerns that she would pay a steep price for failing to listen to voters demanding that the Biden administration end its support for Israel's war in Gaza. While she did perhaps anger many Arab Americans, or she did, not perhaps, she did. When we look at the stats of how many Jewish people voted for Kamala, I think had she had a stronger anti-Israel stance, she would have lost more Jewish voters. I don't know. She wouldn't have lost my vote, but I think that might have been. She might have just swapped one group for the other. Her stance may have cost her the battleground state of Michigan. Yes, Yes, on that, which has the country's largest concentration of Arab American voters. Trump has already won Dearborn, a city where about half of the residents are of Arab descent, 4 years after Biden won the city by a 3-1 margin. Nihad Awad, National Executive Director for the Council of American Islamic Relations, told Newsweek in statement, "It is important for Democratic and other elected officials to recognize that Vice President Harris's steep drop in support in key states compared to President Biden's 2020 victory resulted in part from the deep frustration and disillusionment that many young Muslim, Arab, Black, and other voters feel with the Biden-Harris administration due to its steadfast financial and military support for Israel's ongoing genocide in Gaza." And again, I hear ya. Trump is going to be so much worse. So what was the point that you were trying to prove? I do not know. So many more people are going to die in Palestine because of this. Okay. Awad continued, rather than listening to the clear majority of Americans who support both a ceasefire and a suspension of weapons to Israel, Vice President Harris only struck a slightly more sympathetic tone toward Palestinians. And I don't agree with this. It was maybe the tone was only slightly more sympathetic, but she's not fucking best friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. I think that is an extremely important point, while sticking with the substance of President Biden's disastrous stance. This led to an unprecedented shift of support from Muslim, Arab, and other communities who traditionally vote for Democratic presidents. Losing Latino voters. This was a huge one. Harris appears not to have done enough to energize one of the nation's fastest growing and increasingly influential voting blocs. And this is going to be controversial, I would say. Also, a group of people who's almost as racist as white people. Had to be said. And I think being in New York, if I'm saying that as a New Yorker, that's not good. Exit polling indicates Harris did worse with Latino voters than Biden did in 2020, with Latino men in particular shifting to Trump, who has pledged a mass deportation of immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally. The Harris campaign made some big bets on enthusiasm and turnout among some groups, fundamentally changing the election equation, which did not pay off. Grant Davis-Reher, a political science professor at Syracuse University, told Newsweek. Trump's support among Latino voters may mark a new record for Republicans, Reher said, and an inferior digital strategy. Social media may have also contributed to Trump's victory. And this, I don't know, because I think a lot more Democrats are getting their information from more, I'm just going to say, legitimate news sources than online. But I would agree that Democrats need to recognize the world that we live in now. Like we talked about a few weeks ago, they have to recognize the importance of, as silly as it seems, making podcast appearances, right? I do think, I don't know. I mean, there's I don't know that it would have helped, because I don't know how it would have gone. But I do feel like perhaps Kamala should have done the Joe Rogan experience. I don't know. I'm torn on that one. While the vice president embraced a digital first strategy and limited interviews with traditional media, her campaign's social media reach was likely dwarfed by the Trump campaigns on X, formerly Twitter. It's also dwarfed on Instagram. If I don't know if everyone has access to this, or if I have a little more access, because I'm like a verified creator on Instagram. But like obviously when I do put political content out, I often am hashtagging both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. And you can see when you do that how many hits each name has. And Donald Trump has way more hits on a hashtag than Kamala Harris, which just shows that MAGA's presence on Instagram, and we know on X, is stronger than the Democratic Party's. X owner Elon Musk, and of course, I mean, Elon now owning, X, formerly known as Twitter, I'm sure things are being skewed. I said something sassy to Elon Musk on X a couple days ago, and I was fully expecting to log in next time and have my account be suspended. I wouldn't have been surprised at all. And what I've also noticed since I've had Twitter for years, since like, I don't know, when was it invented? Like, I've had Twitter since like 2015. I've had Twitter for a fucking long time, right?
It was like 06 or 07 Twitter was invented.
Yeah, so well, yeah, I mean, so then I probably had it since then. I can't remember, but yeah, I had Twitter within the first couple of years, I think, of it coming out. I don't know if I had it in college or not. I can't remember. And every year I've amassed followers on Twitter. I'm actually really good at Twitter. That's something I prided myself on. Since Twitter became X, I lose 100 followers like every 2 weeks. Ooh, you want to talk conspiracy theories, right, people? Why is that? My initial theory, I don't think Elon Musk is looking at little old Corinne Fisher's account. My thought was that because I didn't pay for premium, he's a businessman first and foremost. And so anyone who is verified, but like not, paying for premium, our accounts would dwindle, which would bully us into then paying for premium. But who the fuck knows? It could also be anyone who tweets out things that are left leaning. I don't know. But it's certainly very sus that I've had it that long, always been gaining followers. Now all of a sudden, bleeding followers. Very weird. Ex-owner Elon Musk spent months using the platform to amplify the Trump campaign's message. He also hosted a $1 million a day voter sweepstakes in swing states. It's about time the Democratic Party come to terms with the fact that a vast majority of the American public lives in a media environment. I agree with that. I don't think it's good, but I agree with it strategically. From Fox to Twitter to podcasts, that functions as a Republican propaganda machine, Matt McDermott, a Democratic strategist, wrote on X. Ignoring this reality is no longer a tenable solution. I really agree with that. And again, that says someone who makes her living primarily off podcasting and thinks it's a bad idea if you're primarily getting your news from there. I mean, not here because I'm reading so many sources to you. It's not like I'm just, sitting here shooting the shit about my own cockamamie ideas like so many other podcast hosts, Joe Rogan. But I do think that you should be doing, as I encourage you to do every week, and I certainly do myself, more research outside of one source. All right. The next one, this is from the Free Press, again, Barry Weiss's publication, which I used to describe as liberals gone rogue, but now feels oddly conservative. I don't really know the answer. Definitely, I don't know. I don't even know where they're fucking standing now, but it's in their own lane. So this is
just because I know FP articles are super long.
Yeah.
I have a caller on the line who is looking for coping tactics.
They are super long. Okay, yeah. I don't know that I really have. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Give me 1 second.
I want a coping tactic for me having this migraine but then having to put up with this light in my eyes because I'm more vain than I care about pain. I want my look how shiny and beautiful my skin looks, and even though I have a migraine, I have the fucking light blasting in my face. Hello, caller.
Hello, Corinne. How are you?
Good. What's your name?
My name's Bethany.
Bethany, and where are you calling from? What state?
So I'm from Rhode Island, but I'm actually in the middle of driving across the country. I'm a travel nurse, so I'm going back to Rhode Island from LA. So I'm currently in Arkansas, unfortunately.
Oh boy. And so did you place your vote in Rhode Island, or where was your vote?
Yeah, I did mail in Rhode Island.
Okay. And then Mike said you were interested in coping mechanisms post-election.
Yeah, I've just been since I'm driving across the country by myself right now, I've just been in my head all day, and I've been trying to stay off social media and everything.
I think that's a good idea for sure. Any day of the week, staying off social media, I would say, is actually extremely good for your mental health.
Yeah, it's been really great.
Well, thanks. First of all, that sounds like an incredible, but also, a job that takes a lot of energy. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for doing something that helps the community, that serves the community positively.
Of
I mean,
course, thanks for what you do.
oh, of course. Yeah. Truly my pleasure. I know a lot of times people say that, and I really mean it. It is my pleasure. But coping mechanisms. It's interesting because kind of at the top of the show, I was talking about this a little bit, and I know if we can feel so powerless, but I really do think that making us feel powerless is just yet another tactic and another weapon. That people can use to control us, right? When you feel like the fight is futile, you stop fighting. And, so I think, we can take a couple days to mourn. Of course, give yourself that grace. It sucks to lose. It sucks especially to lose to someone who I genuinely believe to be an evil person. But I think that we have to soothe ourselves by staying active, like whatever that means to you. However, you can continue to serve your community. You have an occupation where you are just doing that, daily. So that's enough. And then maybe for you, it does mean just like taking care of yourself. And I mean, I don't know, is there something that you've always wanted to do? I think in a world where rights are being stripped away from us, something really cool to do is something that you've always wanted to do that you never felt you had the time for, or maybe you were nervous to do or embarrassed to do. Like when I was taking singing lessons during COVID, because I go, well, now I have the time to do this. I don't really see a future in this, nor do I think I'm a very good singer, but it brought me lots of joy. I'll say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm gonna like journal and maybe try to write some poetry or something. But I was kind of thinking like how you were saying you want to like get into politics more now and like run for a political position. I'm so fired up that I'm almost like wanting to look into that also. But
I love that. I mean, I wasn't gonna suggest something that was so that took up so much energy to a traveling nurse. I thought that would be rude of me, but hell yeah. I mean, if we're talking about what you can really do to if you want to cope by making some real change in the world, yes, get involved in local government.
Yeah.
And I mean that like even if you're a parent and you weren't on the PTA before and you want to join the PTA now, I think that could be that's like really, really cool. Obviously, I think volunteering is powerful, and people have different ways. Like with philanthropy, you can usually donate your time or your money. I used to donate my time when I didn't have money, and now that I don't have time, I donate money. But I think hopefully I know some of us have neither, and that's quite all right. But yeah, I think that's great. I mean, God, yeah, you know my rule on this show. If anyone is, if any women are getting involved in local politics, you get a mini interview where you can tell the listeners about your platform, and I'll help you any way that I can. I'm really, really invested in that. And when I say that when I woke up, I was Googling the best way to get started in local government. I 100% meant that, because I wasn't even sure. I was like, I mean, I'll start at mayor, but I think I have to start lower than that. I was crazy. I was walking around my house going, I'll run for mayor. I mean, obviously on my Instagram, I was putting Corinne Fisher 2028. I'd have to become. It's not impossible for that I could run for president in 2028, but I would have to become wildly more famous, wildly fast.
Well, you've got my vote
for that to happen. But yeah, I mean, yeah. So let me know what you decide. Thanks for calling. Sorry, it's not the day that we had hoped it would be.
Yeah, it's okay. And thank you so much for everything you do. You've educated me so much and just inspired me, and like given me hope today too, because I just feel like you're so resilient in all of this. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, well, you know what? No one's more resilient than a female comedian. That's if you had to listen to adult men present views that you didn't ask for just consistently, man, wow, really thickens the skin. All right, thank you so much for calling in.
All right.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right, let's get to this. Free Press does normally have pretty long articles. This is not one of their longest, but again, I just like them because like they're a little bit fucking crazy, but they are presenting ideas outside of, at this point, the right and the left. Who the hell knows what they're doing over here? But I think it's interesting. And again, it's one that most of the articles you have to pay to access, so that's why I like sharing these. The Democrats' Identity Crisis by Freddie DeBoer. We've heard from him before. It says to win. Sorry, I'm like having indigestion from all the caffeine. Is that like even a thing? To win, you have to believe things. Freddie DeBoer on the future of the left. All right, interesting. I see where Freddie's going. Well, that didn't work. There are many reasons that Kamala Harris and the Democrats lost so thoroughly last night. But they're for another day. Right now, let's acknowledge the biggest problem, the overarching problem, which is that the Democrats are not a political party. The Republicans are a party, a repugnant party to me, but a party. The Democrats are a non-party, an anti-party, and until that changes, durable progressive political victory is impossible. I say, and I was thinking about that because like I do agree there is more togetherness on the right than there is on the left, and I have a theory that part of that is because the right is so much more religious than the left. So the right is used to being part of a group and just kind of believing in the values of that group, no questions asked, right? I think that is part of the reason. And I know that can come off as like, you know, disrespectful to religion. I don't mean it to be that way. I truly was looking for a logical explanation for why you don't see the infighting or the nitpicking within the Republican Party as much as within the Democratic Party. I also, though, am exposed to the nitpicking of the Democratic Party more because of the field that I work in and the topics that I talk about. So perhaps other Republicans in my field would say, you know what, I actually feel like I get nitpicked too. Perhaps, we do not know. I say that the Democrats are an anti-party because they don't do the most basic things that political parties do. A political party has a set of moral and political values. From those values, they derive policy positions. They elect candidates by appealing to voters through expressing those values and arguing for the superiority of those policies. In other words, they have a political point of view and fight for that point of view at the ballot box and in legislatures. Even with all the confusion and hypocrisy of the Trump administration, the Republican Party's basic identity is simple and direct. It's simple. They're a God-fearing and capitalism-worshiping pro-business party that seeks to minimize taxes and dismantle regulation wherever they can, wedded to a wild profligacy. What the hell word is this? I'm going to stop and look this word up. Profligacy? What's a profligacy? God damn it. 1 second. Got to look this up. Profligacy. What is this? Okay. A reckless extravagance or wastefulness in the use of resources. Licentious or dissolute behavior. I love when they use another word that I don't understand to explain the word I originally didn't understand. And how do we say it? Let me Profligacy. Okay. So profligacy, reckless extravagance, or wastefulness in the use of resources and dissolute behavior. And then licentious is just like, well,
promiscuous and unprincipled.
Yeah, licentious to me doesn't make sense because that's promiscuous and unprincipled in sexual matters, which I would describe perhaps the Democrats as more licentious. But anyway, let's go back to this. So okay, when it comes to defense spending, so they mean it in a wasteful way. They mean wasteful when it comes to defense spending, all buttressed with political appeals to traditionalism, meaning the enforcement of sclerotic cultural and social rules concerning sex, gender roles, and religion. The Republican Party hates taxes, loves the troops, opposes abortion, demonizes immigrants, and constantly harks back to a false vision of some untroubled American past, which always resolves, oddly enough, into an agenda that helps the rich and powerful stay rich and powerful. All of that sucks, but you and I know what the Republicans are. And I think to me, the most spot on and reason that the Republicans are doing so well right now is because America is a capitalist nation, as we talk about on this show. At the end of the day, money is what always is the deciding factor, and the Republican Party is more pro-capitalism than the Democratic Party. Hard stop, end of story. Can you say the same about the Democrats? Consider immigration, probably the signature issue of this recent election. I would say immigration and economics, overwhelmingly what I heard that Republicans were most interested in. What do the Republicans believe about immigration? Close the borders, deport the illegals, America for Americans, ugly and wrong, but a coherent position. What do Democrats believe about immigration? That too, but a little nicer about it, I guess. They're border hawks too, according to relentless messaging from the Harris campaign in these past few months. They're sending them back. They're saying, do not come. They most certainly are not the same as Republicans when it comes to immigration in rhetoric, if nothing else. But what they actually are is confused in a classically Democrat way. They're desperately afraid to embrace starkly different messaging and starkly different policies than those of the GOP, and the result is the sad rightward scramble we saw during the election. If someone's a harsh immigration restrictionist, they're voting for the Republicans. They're voting for Donald Trump. So in becoming a vocal immigration hawk, Harris depressed enthusiasm among voters with pro-immigration beliefs to chase after anti-immigration voters who were never going to vote for her anyway. It's senseless. It reminds me very much of the 2004 election when John Kerry and his team decided to try and out-Bush George W. Bush on the issue of terrorism and national defense. A Democrat was never going to win on those terms. Bush had wrapped himself in the flag and pledged to smite America's enemies from the moment he put down my pet goat. Which, if you guys don't understand the joke, my pet goat is what he was reading to children when he got word that 9/11 had happened, that the Twin Towers had gone down. And, you know, if you're someone of my age or older, you will not forget that. The video clip is actually in Michael Moore's Fahrenheit 9/11. And it's hilarious if it wasn't, you know, and also not funny at all. Yeah. Nor was out. Yeah.
I know that we're not exactly the biggest fans of the FP. That was good writing.
I go back and forth on them. Obviously, like what initially drew me to them, that I was really liked a lot of the journalism they were doing. But then, you know, as time has gone on, I'm like, who are you for, you know? Nor was Al Gore ever going to win on his strange platform of fiscal responsibility, his embarrassing lockbox candidacy, when austerity and balancing the budget are also issues owned by the GOP. And also Al Gore just didn't have charisma, I think was a big problem. Barack Obama waged a pointless and bloody drone war that did nothing to make the United States safer, seemingly to appear tough on terror, when no American who was motivated by that issue was ever going to support the Democrats anyway. The party has made this core political mistake relentlessly, reflexively. You can't out-Republican the Republicans, and the fact that the Democrats still constantly attempt to do so is something like the existential problem the party faces. Republicans want taxes as low as possible. Democrats choke and stumble when they talk about taxes because they don't want to be perceived as a pro-tax party. Republicans are naturally and straightforwardly the law and order party. But Harris spent the past several months bragging about how she loved being the top cop in California, as if she were ever going to win the law and order vote. The GOP is the party of the American gun owner, the party of the National Rifle Association, the party of the gun nut. But did you know Kamala sleeps with a Glock under her pillow? She'll tell you. The Republicans hate public schools and public education and those awful liberal public school teachers and their unions, so they'll force school choice wherever they can. The Democrats are also for school choice, but sort of like public schools, kind of, sometimes. The Republicans hate China and love to demonize the country and its leaders. The Democrats also see China as the enemy, but in a less racist way or something. Again and again and again, American politics devolves into a battle between an evil agenda that's simple to understand and a less evil agenda that's tentative, confused, and seemingly arbitrary. Surely the Democrats have abortion, though. They're right on the merits and get a big electoral bump from the issue, right? Well, sure. Democrats are unquestionably much better on abortion than the Republicans, and the country has been punishing the GOP for their extremism. But that doesn't change the fact that there's still a good deal that's unclear in the Democratic position on women's reproductive rights. I find that a really surprising number of pro-choice people can't articulate exactly what protections Roe v. Wade enshrined, and this extends to a lot of people in the Democratic establishment. Look at Joe Biden's deeply confused answer on a question about abortion in the debate. Biden being confused certainly isn't breaking news, but his difficulty in arguing the Democratic position on late-term abortion in particular is telling. The general policy among many Dems appears to be change the subject. I can tell you my position. Abortion should be legal from conception to delivery on demand without explanation or apology. If a national party has to practice politics and moderate that message somewhat, fine. But there has to be conceptual clarity on the core values of the party, and there really isn't, even with their most reliable issue. And Biden being confused. Well, and I mean, again, I've said this before, but I was thoroughly unimpressed by most, everyone I've seen debate since Hillary Clinton. Once I saw Hillary Clinton debate, everyone else's debate looked like absolute garbage, or debating skills looked like absolute garbage. You have to believe things. And for the record, part of the reason abortion is such an albatross for Republicans is because they've recently had to deal with the same lack of clarity. With the fall of Roe, they can no longer simply coast on a no-abortion stance that they couldn't achieve in policy anyway. With Israel and Palestine, I don't even really need to say anything. There is no meaningful or coherent difference in how the Democrats see the issue. I'm frequently told that Harris would be better for the Palestinians. She would be. What are you talking about? You're frequently told. I mean, she's not best friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. That right there puts her in the lead. But when I ask for a clear policy difference,
why? You keep saying that, but why?
Because the person who's not best friends with Benjamin Netanyahu is not going to be at Benjamin Netanyahu's beck and call. What are you talking about?
But he's also the one who got on Benjamin Netanyahu's case and said, "Hey, I want this Gaza thing wrapped up by the time I get in office." I don't believe that. I think that was a little show. But when I ask for a clear policy difference, a formal commitment to some materially different way in how they handle the issue, no one can produce one. The Democrats defer to the Netanyahu government. I have so much. Also the Palestinian government and the Israeli government also can't figure out the issue. They're like, so why is it then become America's job? I mean, obviously, I know we want to cut off weapons and funding. Yeah, because we have problems here. I get that. The Democrats defer to the Netanyahu government just as consistently as a GOP administration would, afraid even to really publicly rebuke Israel's actions. Indeed, the issue is like a parody of the Democratic character. They don't have any clear, easily expressed policy goals that might help the Palestinians. They just feel vaguely badly for them. For a policy to work, the two Palestinians and Israelis would have to come to some sort of an agreement, which hasn't happened for decades. So I don't know how America's supposed to fix that. Besides, okay, I understand cutting off money, cutting off weapons. That part I get. But beyond that, to think that they can solve the issue in the Middle East that's a wild to put on America. The issue isn't just a matter of a lack of clear and digestible political stances for the Democrats. The issue is the party's addiction to timidity. It's seemingly embarrassment at opposing the Republican agenda at all. For my entire I will say, anytime I'm in a Democratic space, I do describe it as tepid. So I agree with that. For my entire adult life,
The Democrats have been defined by a refusal to openly and proudly advocate for their values, acting vaguely uncomfortable about having a policy platform at all. And this condition is bad, even if you prefer an incrementalist, centrist Democratic policy platform. Unable to muscularly advocate for your side, you empower conservatives who drag American politics even further to the right than you'd like. Exactly. We're busy having infights while they're just singing gospel and moving forward. An old episode of The Simpsons parodied the Democrats by showing a sign hanging at their convention that reads, "We hate life and ourselves." That self-loathing is as recognizably a part of the Democratic character as any particular policy position, and voters can smell it. People don't want to vote for people who are too embarrassed to advocate for their own politics. I would also say that the more, as you could become more educated, you probably would hate life more. So, when you look at the stats of Democrats versus Republicans, Democrats have a higher college education level and certainly a higher percentage of master's degrees. And the more you learn about life in the world, I don't see how you couldn't hate it more. So, The most important presidential election in modern American history came in 1964 when Lyndon B. Johnson handed arch-conservative Barry Goldwater a crushing defeat, 486 electoral votes to 52. The political coalitions of the early 20th century had fully cracked up, with the once solid South, solidly Democratic, having switched sides, driven largely by white Southern anger at the victories of the civil rights movement. Democrats had not yet decided to agree with Republicans that government is bad. The previous Republican presidential administration, Dwight Eisenhower's, would be unrecognizable to a modern political observer in its lack of clear conservative values. It was Goldwater, more than any other figure in American history, who made the Republicans the party of movement conservatism. And they got crushed for their troubles, opening the door for LBJ to implement the Great Society agenda in his first full term. Many political observers, let me look what the Great Society agenda was. There's a Wikipedia link. It's long if you want to read it, but just in a succinct way, the Great Society was a set of domestic programs in the United States launched by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964 and 65. The term was first referenced during a 1964 speech by Johnson at Ohio University, then later formally presented at the University of Michigan, and came to represent his domestic agenda. The main goal was the total elimination of poverty and racial injustice. Just so we know what we're talking about. Many political observers of the time said the movement conservatism had been exposed as a fringe philosophy that would sink the Republicans if they insisted on sticking with it. Yet 20 years later, Ronald Reagan was reelected in a rout even larger than that of Johnson's, losing only a single state to Walter Mondale. The conservative movement's victory was so extensive, so complete, that it prompted the movement to start out republicaning the Republican Party, which still hampers the Democratic Party today. They have to stop trying to be the Republicans, but nicer, to stop defining themselves as the us too party. So I mean, this obviously is pitching that we stop trying to be centrist. We stop trying this Joe Biden approach, and we just go hardcore left, which I don't know if that's going to work, because I think if that's what we were looking for, wouldn't Bernie Sanders have won the nomination? Was it that much anti-Semitism? I do not know.
Yeah, but Corinne, that's not a fair comparison. Bernie Sanders was ahead across the board when they pulled the rug out from under him and made it so he wasn't allowed to win.
You're saying this was a Hillary Clinton conspiracy.
No, I'm saying that the entire Democratic oligarchy conspired. It has nothing to do with Hillary Clinton. She was their figurehead at that point.
No, I'm not blaming it on Hillary Clinton. I'm saying the Democratic Party conspiracy. I'm just calling it the Hillary Clinton conspiracy. Yes, obviously she didn't do it herself.
Yeah, but that's documented. I didn't think that was up for debate even.
But I still don't think Bernie Sanders would have won. I'd be really curious. I don't think he would have won, but I guess we'll see.
I mean, look, I think he would have gotten younger people out to vote. They were the people who were fired up, who were not fired up at all for Clinton.
I mean, young women. A lot of young women were fired up for Clinton.
Okay,
they were. The Democrats need to do the same thing the Republican Party did in 1964, define itself and stick with it. There may be, as there was for Goldwater and his party, some short-term political costs in finally defining themselves, in finally giving up on being the mini Republicans. But as the Goldwater to Reagan movement shows, sometimes the only way to long-term victory is with a little short-term pain. And anyway, we're already feeling that pain right now with Vice President Border Cop Kamala Harris, aren't we? Again, as we've gone over before, like the way we describe Kamala Harris's relation to the border is inaccurate. The border czar terminology is coming from the right. Just to reiterate, and this is a fight that I had, not a fight, but a point that I made during the live stream that no Republican had a decent response to, and actually just was silent and didn't respond at all because I think they realized that they had misinformation, was that Kamala was not put in charge of the entire border. She was specifically, again, to reiterate for the umpteenth time, she was specifically put in charge of talking to people from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador. And her job, as instructed by President Joe Biden, was to find out why we have had such a huge recent rise in illegal immigration from those three places, and to figure out what is happening in those places that is making people need to seek refuge in America at such skyrocketing numbers. That was her fucking job. That was the job. It was not the whole border. Please, if you're going to have an argument, have the correct fucking information. Nobody bought Harris as an immigration hard case, just like nobody bought her as the candidate who would stop the government from taking the guns. It didn't work. Wouldn't you rather be going through defeat with your head held high, having staked an actual moral alternative to the nativist fear-mongering of Donald Trump? If we're going to feel the pain for the next 4 years, wouldn't you like that pain to accompany us on a journey where the Democrats are finally going somewhere? The Democrats becoming an actual left party is the only way for them to consistently win without the rare combination of circumstance and charisma that brought us to Barack Obama terms. All of the capitulation and triangulation simply convinces the public that the Democrats are feckless and don't believe anything, with the added ugly bonus of disillusioning the party's base, which would like an actual alternative to the Republicans and Trumpism. Thanks. Democrats have been trying to win by tacking relentlessly to the right for my entire lifetime. And of course, we're already seeing many calls for even more of a rightward push in the post-election recriminations period. But we've had almost a half century of the Democrats trying to beat the Republicans by being the Republicans. And here's the result: a 7-for-7 sweep of the swing states for Donald Trump and a popular vote victory. How many times can you keep doing the same thing and losing before you try something different? Now, I think this is a good tack on to what you were telling me before we started, Mike, about, because I came in and, being the good Democrat I am, I congratulated you on your win. You voted for Donald Trump and he won, and I congratulated you on your win, and your response was, eh. And I said, what? You weren't excited that your guy won? And you told me, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you told me that your vote was because you wanted to see a change in the Democratic Party. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
And I mean, I know you commented that you liked some of this writing. Like, does what Freddie DeBoer says in this piece, did that resonate with you? Is that what you would like to see? Or if not, what are the changes that you would like to see that would motivate you to vote for the Democratic candidate in the future?
Well, I just like to see change. I mean, the Democrats.
But what does that mean? Because all the MAGA people told me the same thing, that they wanted to see change. What does your version of change look like?
Well, I mean, I'm tired of seeing the same faces that I've been seeing since I was 12 years old running politics.
We haven't seen Kamala since.
Chuck Schumer was elected to the Senate when I was in the 5th grade.
Okay. So, and I think that's
What
something
are we
that we
talking
hear
about
talked
here?
about a lot. I think limitations on terms for people in all political offices, people would like to see shortened. I mean, if I'm right, I saw Nancy Pelosi was just won yet another term, correct?
I'm not sure. I know that the
believe I'm right.
backsplash page of the New York Post this morning was that Chuck Schumer is out as the Senate Majority Leader, which yeah, I think that's a step in the right direction.
Okay.
For certain.
But you are. I mean, have you voted Democratic in the past? I know you said the last. So, but when's the last time you voted? Because you didn't.
Obama 2012.
Okay, so you voted for Barack Obama.
I voted for Obama in 2008 and 2012.
So both terms, and then you did not vote for. You did not vote for.
Didn't vote for
Hillary.
Trump in 16. Didn't vote for. Didn't vote for anybody 16 or 20.
Okay, so you didn't vote for anyone Hillary Clinton versus Trump. You didn't vote for anyone Joe Biden versus Trump.
Nope.
Okay.
Couldn't care less.
Okay, but I mean, you do care. So you do care. To say you don't care, I think, is inaccurate, and
All right,
is
that's
actually
fair.
and is actually like demeaning towards yourself.
No, it's not though, because here's the thing, right? Like I was tangentially, I guess, like coming down to the two options at the time, probably rooting for Trump over Biden because
Okay.
it's the same thing. I saw Biden as an establishment vote.
Okay.
Right, you're voting the party that just wasted 4 years of an outsider populist president by hanging him up with the Russia hoax thing, by hanging him up with multiple failed impeachments, spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money to thwart this guy's every move. You then voted for that establishment to stay in power for another 4 years. So that kind of frustrated me, but certainly not enough to get me, off my couch on a football Sunday and go early vote or anything like that. This year, I don't know. I felt that change to the point where it was like the staging a coup, getting rid of our sitting president, right?
So you liked January 6th?
No. The coup I was talking about was getting rid of a sitting president, telling a sitting president,
the bully.
you are
Yeah.
not allowed to run for president anymore.
Right.
You are the quote unquote leader of the free world. And we're telling you the purse strings have officially closed, Joe.
Right.
You're done.
Yeah.
You're out.
Uh-huh.
That was insane to me.
In a good way or a bad way?
No, in a horrible way. In a way where I feel like, Nancy Pelosi, when she cast the deciding vote for Obamacare, she said, I know that technically this should not pass, but I'm superseding that because I know better for the will of the American people. I know what's better, for the greater good of the American people. And that to me felt like fascist rhetoric back in 2008, 2009.
Okay.
This person is still in power, is still in charge. And it's like, I can't, man. Like, they need to see that this is not working. Whatever they're doing is not working. That is the message that needed to be sent loud and clear, and I think it was. And
so, but the ideas and policies that Donald Trump has pitched, you don't find any of them upsetting or dangerous?
I think the policies that were pitched by Kamala Harris, when she was asked about it on Anderson Cooper, like we watched here, when she was asked, what would you do differently than the Biden administration that saw my gas prices shoot through the roof, that saw my grocery store prices shoot through the roof? She said nothing. She would change nothing about the policies that she put down. I mean, that includes...
I don't think that was a strong answer.
It was an awful answer, but what is she going to do? All her record is the last 4 years as VP. She can't run on her record in California. That was torn to shreds in front of us 4 years ago during the primaries. That record in California no longer stands. Her only record is a record as VP. So she can't tear down the administration she was just part of, which is her only real resume line item for president of the United States.
Right. I mean, so I do agree with what you're saying about we need more rotation in politics. We need more fresh faces. We need more diversity, and that doesn't mean just black and white people. That means diverse, racial diversity, age diversity, sex diversity. So much. There
How about
are so many
somebody
types of
who's worked a
diversity.
real job in their life?
I love
How
that.
about that?
I love a party. I love the idea of it's funny because like the Working Families Party is also in New York, at least. I don't know if it's different, but working we're on the ballot in New York, the Democratic Party is also called the Working Families Party, and it's the same people. And I love the idea of more regular, everyday people getting involved in politics. I think that's a great idea, but people need to actually do that. And I think everyone else thinks that someone else is going to step up and do it, and they're not. And, you know, no matter what you think about AOC, I really like that she was a fucking waitress in New York City and was like, I'm going to do this.
She has not been back to her borough in 3 years. Come on.
What?
Well, she hasn't been back to the borough. She represents tangentially the Bronx.
Yeah. Okay. So,
okay.
She
what has she done except for?
She went directly from working class American to politician. That's my
DC
point.
elite, to being a part of that same machine.
Okay. Mike, I didn't say that I like what she's doing now. I said the pathway, we saw that the pathway is feasible by what she did. Yeah, that's the point I'm making.
And I'm disagreeing wholeheartedly, because if that's the pathway, taking some working class person, making them a scion for people to come out and vote for the younger generation, that's not the path forward.
But they also, she accepted that the choice that the party made for her. She didn't need to accept that, and I agree. I don't like that. I don't like the choices that she made. You know, kind of just becoming all of a sudden like a politician celebrity.
You see the girl at the Met Gala? This is your person who's actually out there fighting for you. Eat the rich.
She's not my person.
No.
I'm talking about accessibility, that you don't have to be like born rich or have these deep political connections to get involved in politics. That is all I'm saying. That is the beginning and end of my point regarding AOC. Moving on though, but I just wanted to hear, and for my main point in response was like, I hear what you say. Like, I do feel like politics has what I'm going to call the Tim Burton touch. We see the same people again and again, right? Like, you know, but I don't understand how then voting for a businessman millionaire.
Billionaire.
No, Trump's not a billionaire. I looked that up last week. I thought he was, and I misspoke, and I looked up his net worth, and he's
not a billionaire anymore.
No, I thought he was, and
he was at one point.
Yeah, no, he's Trump. Yeah, I believe he's only a millionaire. I looked it up.
I mean,
wait.
DTJ stock is going through the roof.
No, never mind. His estimate. Where did I get that from? Because you're right. He is a billionaire. His estimated net worth is $6.6 billion. Because I was surprised. Where the fuck did I look it up? Maybe they were assessing something different with all the money that he's lost. And he's about to be $300 million richer after his election win.
Because the stock market is through the roof.
I know.
But I mean, if you look at it, he's the only person who's been president in the last, I think it's 40 years, who left office with a lower net worth than he entered it with. You know, Hillary Rodham Clinton has been a public servant and has run a charity. I mean, I'm cribbing Dave Smith at this point, but you know, she ran a charity and has been a quote unquote public servant, a handsomely paid one, but public servant for the last 40 years. She's worth $100 million. Donald Trump is the only person who's run for this office and lost money.
That's because for Hillary, it's mostly because of speaking engagements and the books she's written. I don't think Donald Trump can write a book.
Speaking engagements, okay, fair enough. He's written 5, so
did he
good point.
write them?
None of these people write their own books.
I think Hillary really wrote her own book.
Okay,
I do.
I think she sat down with a brilliant author, gave her story, and gave notes on the editorial, like most of these people do.
I don't think so. I don't know. Some people, I was offered a ghostwriter for the Guys We Fuck book, and we wrote it ourselves, which you can tell by how many times we use the word shit.
She does. Yeah, including the title.
No, there's no shit in there.
No, but there is ampersands.
Yeah.
She gets $200,000 for these speaking engagements. Who do you think she's doing these speaking engagements for? Nikki Haley was a populist candidate coming out of South Carolina. What happened? She got a job with Boeing or one of these weapons manufacturers. All of these people are on the take after a very short period of time. They leave politics, go get a bag, and come back in now working for the people that gave them the bag. There needs to be more rotation, getting these people out of here, getting fresh faces, new blood, term limits across the board.
I think these are all good ideas, but I don't think Donald Trump is the solution to this. And I think Donald Trump is just a businessman who's been in the game for a long time, who's now, instead of helping his politician friends, is going to help his businessman friends. That's what I think.
Then why did they spend his first term doing nothing but hanging him up with legal proceedings left and right? It feels like they were afraid.
Who's they? The Democrats?
The Democratic establishment, yeah.
What do you mean, why?
Why would they they didn't let him get anything done because he is an outsider, at least in my view.
Well, I
This is
think
someone
it's
who's
because
not
he's
a
a
career
Republican. The
politician.
Democrats and the Republicans do that to each
They
other.
don't hold each other up with court cases. They don't threaten
Most times the
impeachment over and
Republican
over again.
president isn't an actual felon. All right. So Nancy Pelosi, she won her 20th term in the U.S. House, and that number right alone just feels too much. And she's 84 years old, just to check in. So again, term limits I love, and I just think when you're running a so-called democracy, there should be term limits because we need fresh ideas, and we can't have people in power that long. We just can't. I 100% agree with that. All right, we've been going for a long time. I had a bunch of other things, but I feel like I have to kind of sum it up with one last article. I guess we'll just, okay. So I'm going to read why it's so hard to beat Trump. I think that's interesting because then the whole episode is cohesively a reflection. And then moving forward, or next week, we can do other articles. Or should I read Trump's day one from the Hill, which would be then a right-leaning? I don't know. I mean, I'll just quickly go through what Trump plans to do because it's from a conservative news source. I don't want to skew this too. Although I think it's, the most of the people who were writing notes on what the Democrats did wrong were kind of, gone rogue publications or left publications because the right doesn't want to give us the secrets to correcting our own party. Why would they? It would be a bad strategic move. But from the Hill, Trump has big plans for day one on immigration, energy, and more. And while I'm reading this, Mike, I know you wanted to talk about Polymarket. Would you be able to summarize that for us? Or do you feel confident in explaining that piece that you sent to me without having to go through the whole article, or no? Yeah? Okay. So I'll read this and you can prepare for that before we go. So President-elect Trump is expected to get to work immediately upon taking office, enacting major changes on immigration, energy, and foreign policy. And these are kind of the things here's a look at what Trump said he will do, quote, on day one. Okay. And this is, again, a conservative news source, The Hill, saying that this is all the things on day one that Trump said he will do. And again, I'm not holding him, to wild semantics. Like, I don't think literally day one. When he says day one, I interpret that as that, not that he intends to solve all these things on day one, but that he intends to get the ball rolling on all these things. Again, still a pretty long day when you're probably figuring out kind of just like remembering how to use the computer software again and where the bathroom is, but whatever. So immigration, most of Trump's day one agenda is likely to be focused on cracking down on immigration. And then, which again, it's a massive logistical lift, as they point out here, and also expensive. The American Immigration Council released an October study that found a mass deportation effort aimed at removing 13 million immigrants in this country illegally would cost at least $315 billion. And that's been my main point the whole time. Okay, you think that quote illegal immigrants are a burden on the economy. Deporting them is insanely expensive. How are we getting the money to do that? And I know people will say, stop giving money. I don't know, stop giving money to Ukraine, Israel, all these things. I don't know where we're getting the money from, but it's expensive. And if you're worried about money, deportation is not cheap. It's not a cheap solution. Second is energy and climate measures. Trump has pledged on day one to drill, baby, drill, a vague campaign slogan that signals he will seek to further ramp up oil production from already record-setting levels. He has also outlined more specific steps he will take to reverse Biden-era environmental regulations. On his campaign website, Trump included a pledge to, quote, roll back every Biden policy that is brutalizing American auto workers on day one. Foreign policy, Trump has vowed on day one to return to a foreign policy that puts America's interests first, a sharp reversal from the Biden administration, which emphasized international alliances and led support for Ukraine in its war against Russia. This, depending on how you're going about it, I certainly think that we need to really concentrate. It's what is very clear is that Americans feel unheard, and we need to. The president needs to patch up America's relationship with itself. How he's going to go about it, we will see. Reversing Biden orders on equity. One of Trump's biggest applause lines at rallies has consistently been when he vows to keep men out of women's sports and end transgender insanity. And he has already laid out how he will roll back protections for transgender youth. On day one, he will revoke transgender student protections enacted earlier this year by the Biden administration. Again, a lot of time and energy spent on a wildly small group of people. The Education Department in April unveiled a final set of changes to Title, what the fuck number is that? To cover discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity for the first time. The Supreme Court in August sided with the 10 GOP-led states that had sued to prevent the enforcement of the new rules. And I also believe that if you look in Project 2025, although Trump has distanced himself with that, and presumably to win this election, it looks like they're all also going to stop allowing transgender people in the military and pull out people who are currently in. That feels like the energy. Next is firing Jack Smith and pardoning January 6th offenders. And that's pretty much self-explanatory. All right, so then are you prepared for your Polymarket presentation?
Yeah, I mean it's well, no, I sent Corinne a pretty interesting article, albeit by someone who's invested in Polymarket. So
transparency is key.
Yeah. Just explaining why Polymarket was, for instance, right? And all the betting sites were like this, but why markets were so much faster to react than polls. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the CNN article, CNN video that I sent you earlier, too, where it's like these polls dramatically miss on Trump. They have for the last 3 elections. So, when you're talking, we were talking last night about the concept of Kalshi and Polymarket and companies like that who have these election betting markets. And I know Harrison was saying that Elon Musk, shifted those odds in a dramatic way by, investing millions of dollars on Trump. There's a lot of foreign money into it. And while all of that is true, $3.6 billion was the total handle that was bet just on Polymarket for this election. And the point the guy was making is like that is enough to drown out any, foreign bad actors, enough to drown out any people who are, just going one way or another. And cash is king, right? Cash is something that's actually tangible, and you can back up. Someone, if they're, you've heard all the time, voting with your dollar. Those are the people who are the most active, who are the most engaged, and are actually doing this thing, not the people who are home at 2 p.m. and happen to get a phone call. Polls have obviously been super outdated, especially, in the digital age, and we've seen that more and more. And it is massively telling that the markets had Trump at about a 60% win chance, 62% on Polymarket coming into it the day before, whereas CNN had it 50-50. I know Nate Silver at 538 said he ran 80,000 simulations and Kamala won 40,004 of them. And it was like, okay, you really think it's that close? But Polymarket, a place where people are betting with their dollar and actually telling you where they intend to place their vote, was at 62%. And it's like the other thing that they were noticing is that I was bringing it up over the course of the election as we saw these swing states starting to go, to the flipping from light blue to light red. Polymarket was going like crazy, shooting up in one direction, whereas like CNN had to sit there and be like, nope, we got more trucks coming in with more ballots. We got to count all these things. And it's like, no, we see which way the trend is going. And they said the most telling was states like New York, which was always heavily blue.
Right.
It cut a 20% deficit for the first time in, I think it was 20 years this year. And they said that the overwhelming majority of votes for Trump in Florida, which they expected to go red, but seeing just how dramatic that swing was in Florida and New York specifically, said that, okay, the swing states are going to be like super easy to fall. If this many more people in these places, which are usually strongholds for one or the other, are coming out and voting, more people are engaged, and certainly on the Trump side in this one. So that is why, like, you would see the when we came on last night at 8 p.m. it was closer to that, like 60, 65, 68% by an hour in. Once New York was really starting to report and got cooking, that's when it got up to like 75% Trump. And it only went, more dramatically up from there. And they were saying Polymarket was ready to call this thing at midnight. Versus, the CNN and AP, which didn't confirm it until about 6 a.m.
Right. Okay.
So the almighty ad dollar working in CNN and legacy media's favor.
Well, I think that's very interesting, and a betting app being more accurate than polls aligns with what America is, a capitalist country. It really does. It aligns perfectly. We're going to close out today with an article. So we've been, following Nate Cohn's the tilt with commentary on the election for the whole election season, and I actually chose an article that he wrote before we knew the outcome of this election. It's from November 2nd, although he did publish an additional one kind of regarding the same theme today. But I think it's a little bit more interesting to hear it before you know the answer. It makes it a little bit less biased because, he's presenting an idea that he already doesn't, know to be true yet. So this is from the New York Times. Why are Democrats having such a hard time beating Trump? And again, this is from the Tilt, which is for Times subscribers only, which is why I like sharing this with you, because I'm helping you bypass a paywall. The national political environment just isn't as conducive to a Harris victory as many might imagine. Again, this is from something that Nate Cohn presented on November 2nd. Whatever happens Tuesday, it's fair to say this campaign has not gone as smoothly as Democrats expected. In the wake of the midterms, Donald J. Trump appeared to be finished. He may still lose, of course, but he clearly wasn't disqualified as many expected. By January 6th, several criminal indictments were an overturning of Roe v. Wade by his Supreme Court appointees. If voters disqualified any candidate in 2024, it was the sitting president, not the felon who attempted to overturn the last election. How is Mr. Trump still so competitive? The simplest answer is that the national political environment just isn't as conducive to a Democratic victory as many might imagine. Democrats clearly face headwinds in this election. In the last New York Times Siena College poll, only 40% of voters approved of President Biden's performance, which is that stat that I was talking about at the top of the show. That is historically, always then makes the next president be from the alternate party. And only 28% said the country was heading in the right direction. No party has retained control of the White House when so many Americans were dissatisfied with the country or the president. The polls suggest the challenge for Democrats runs even deeper. For the first time in decades, Republicans have pulled even or ahead in nationwide party identification. Polls also find Republicans with an edge on most key issues, with democracy and abortion standing as significant exceptions. The Democrats' challenge appears to, and when they say democracy, I know that's very vague, but that means like that's regarding like January 6th and the peaceful transfer of power. The Democrats' challenge appears to be part of a broader trend of political struggles for ruling parties across the developed world. Voters appear eager for change when they get the chance. The ruling parties in Britain, Germany, Italy, Australia, and most recently Japan all faced electoral setbacks or lost power. Mr. Trump himself lost 4 years ago. France and Canada might well join the list. The specifics vary from country to country and party to party, but much of the story is the same. The pandemic and upheaval that followed. Nearly everywhere, high prices and the fallout from the pandemic left voters angry and resentful. It discredited ruling parties, and many of them weren't especially popular at the outset. This gradually eroded and sometimes shattered trust in government officials, liberal elites, and the media. When prices rose, it frustrated millions of younger and low-income voters who saw their savings, purchasing power, housing opportunities, and hopes dwindle. In the United States, post-pandemic disillusionment and frustration took a toll on Democrats. The party championed a tough response to the virus, including mask and vaccine mandates, school closures, and lockdowns. It had backed the Black Lives Matter movement, argued for a more liberal border policy, sought to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and spent trillions on stimulus. As the pandemic ended, all of this quickly became a liability. Unlike other governing parties, Democrats have the Trump card to play. Along with abortion, it could be enough to allow Democrats to prevail. That's exactly what happened in the 2022 midterm elections. But even if Kamala Harris emerges as the winner, it will not necessarily be a victory for progressives. More than at any time over the last 16 years, Democrats are playing defense on the issues. They've moved to the right on immigration, energy, and crime. They de-emphasize the traditional liberal push to expand the society safety net, which was eclipsed by the urgency to reduce prices. So again, echoing the sentiment from the pre-press article that's like, who are the Democrats? They're trying to be Republicans. They're trying to be more right. They need to be who they originally were intended to be. Whatever the outcome, a long period of liberal ascendancy in American politics might be waning. The end of an era? Since 2008, Democrats and liberalism have been dominant in American politics. Democrats won the popular vote in 4 straight presidential elections. When they held full control of government, they enacted the Affordable Care Act, Dodd-Frank, and the CHIPS Act. They saved the auto industry and spent billions on renewable energy, infrastructure, and more. Liberalism has been ascendant in the culture as well. The period was marked by a series of popular movements on the activist left, from the Obama 08 campaign to Occupy Wall Street, Black Lives Matter, #MeToo, the Bernie Sanders campaign, and calls for a Green New Deal and Medicare for all. The election of Mr. Trump didn't stop this outpouring of liberal energy. Instead, it accelerated it. His election alarmed and outraged millions who saw him as racist, sexist, and a threat to democracy. The murder of George Floyd and the pandemic only added to the outrage, leading to a vigilant and righteous new left that preached anti-racism and coronavirus restrictions. It culminated in a wave of protests and so-called woke progressive activism on race and gender. Over just the last few years, all of this liberal energy suddenly seemed to vanish. The backlash against pandemic restrictions and the woke left gradually went mainstream and even divided liberal institutions. Again, division within the party. Trust in the media, experts, and scientists plunged. Younger Americans took to social media, perhaps. Sorry, this is the worst website in the world. Perhaps with the help of algorithmic changes to vent their frustrations with an aging president, high prices, lost opportunity, and anger at a system that wasn't working for them. At the same time, the events that followed the pandemic took a serious toll on the case for liberalism, whatever the precise merits of the arguments. Inflation and high interest rates could be blamed on high government spending stimulating excessive demand. High gas prices could be blamed on suspending drilling permits and the termination of the Keystone Pipeline project. A surge of migrants could be blamed on the administration's looser border policy, which became politically untenable. Homelessness, crime, and disorder made the case for, quote, law and order. On issue after issue, Democrats have responded by moving to the right. Most obviously, Ms. Harris had to back away from positions she took when the progressive cultural ascendancy was near its peak in 2019, a ban on fracking, Medicare for all, and so on. But the Democratic shift isn't simply about backing away from positions taken during a Democratic primary. Across the board, Democrats have de-emphasized policies they preached with confidence to a general electorate only a few years ago. On immigration, Ms. Harris's first priority is a border security bill rather than the comprehensive solution long backed by Latino activists and even centrist Democrats a decade ago. On energy, Democrats brag about increasing domestic oil production. On crime, Ms. Harris's record as a prosecutor is now an asset. The traditional Democratic program to expand the social safety net has played a diminished role in the campaign. In her speech at the Democratic convention, Ms. Harris didn't mention the unfinished business of Obama-Biden era liberalism, paid family leave, an expanded child tax credit, student loan forgiveness, universal pre-K, or free community college. Instead, she promised a conservative-sounding tax break for small businesses. The liberal policies she does advocate on the campaign trail tend to be far smaller than the Affordable Care Act or those contained in Build Back Better. If there's any poll question that captures the swing toward a more conservative environment, it's the question of which party or candidate would do the best on the issue that's most important to your vote. All cycle, polls have shown Republicans and Mr. Trump with an advantage on this measure. Indeed, the polls show Mr. Trump and Republicans with an advantage on most issues. The rightward shift is evident in party identification as well. This year, high-quality polls found that the nearly 2-decade-long Democratic advantage in party identification evaporated or even reversed. This year, the biggest names in political polling, Pew Research, Gallup, NBC, Wall Street Journal, Times Siena, and so on, have all found the Republicans edging ahead of the Democrats for the first time since 2004, if ever. The trend in party registration is similar, with Republicans rapidly gaining ground across the country. All of the battleground states with party registration, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and North Carolina, will probably have more registered Republicans than Democrats in November, even if Ms. Harris wins the support from the growing ranks of the unaffiliated. In the longer sweep of the last 16 years, this is an enormous change. When Democrats came to power in 2008, they confidently entered the White House with arguably a 40-year-long list of policies to address a backlog of problems from healthcare and climate to immigration and unions. They enacted much of this agenda over the last 16 years, but many voters still aren't satisfied with the state of the country. A lost conservative moment. The loss of Democrats' advantage in party identification and the growing Republican edge on the issues signaled that there was a good opportunity for Republicans to win this election. If it weren't for Mr. Trump's liabilities, it's easy to imagine how Republicans could have won decisively in the matter of a change election like in 1980 or 2008, when American politics lurched left or right with lasting consequences. Mr. Trump might still do so, but clearly his challenges will make it harder in important ways. If Mr. Trump wins, this will be the likeliest explanation rather than his own political popularity. After a period of Democratic predominance, the upheaval during and after the pandemic, along with the response, left too many voters disillusioned with Democrats and unwilling to give the party another chance, despite their serious reservations about Mr. Trump. If he loses, the explanation will be equally simple. It was his own conduct on January 6th and the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe that cost him a winnable election. In that event, a Harris victory still might not augur well for the hopes of progressives. Oddly, it is easiest to imagine a reinvigorated liberalism if Mr. Trump wins the presidency and refuels the tank of anti-Trump fervor once more. Democrats might keep their winning streak going on Tuesday, but when historians look back, they might conclude that the liberal ascendancy had already come to an end. So I like that because I think it was making a lot of the points that people made after we knew the result, before the result was known. And again, Nate Cohn, if we're talking about like who really knows their shit at the New York Times, I would go with him for election coverage. But yeah, so yeah.
One more call?
Yeah. I was worried about getting you home, but yes, I can. Yeah.
I have to wait until Alex is done with Story Wars.
Oh, you know what? I'm always worried about getting you out because I'm like, well, I live in the fucking neighborhood, and you know, I'm just a single dog lady. I got all the time in the world, you know.
I appreciate it. Our caller Jessica, I think though, is not a single dog lady. I did hear a baby crying in the background, so she might have had to have hung up. I'm sorry about that.
Oh no, okay. Well, sorry, Jessica. Nate Cohen just blabbing on. But yeah, all right. So that is our show for today. I hope, you know, with what we wanted to do with this show is certainly, you know, we didn't just need to sit around and point the finger at this group or that group. We did a bit of that because I think it's necessary to know the stats. But then I think we quickly wanted to move on. Mike and I discussed as like, you know, what before the show, you know, aired, what the Democrats can do better, what went wrong, and how can we, you know, work together to find a candidate who people are happy and excited about and who feels different and not kind of, as many of these articles said, doesn't feel like diet Republican. And so that, you know, and I hope you feel maybe calmer. I hope maybe you feel like this gave you a plan of action. I think learning, educating myself, kind of figuring out logistically what perhaps went wrong always makes me feel calmer. I definitely feel better now than I did walking into this show, which is certainly part of what I want to do with Without a Country. I was very riled up when I walked into the studio, and I feel much better now. I feel better than I did all day because it feels like we know what the problem, you know, we know some of the problems more clearly. We see the numbers, we see the red and the blue on the map, and now we got to roll our sleeves up and get to work. You know, don't treat this like, you know, a once a year or twice a year Catholic. You know, don't just show up to church on Christmas and Easter. being politically involved and active is a year-round job. You know, you're not Santa Claus. You're a human being. You're an active citizen. You're a member of American society. So we can't just now forget about this until 2027. Wait, right? What year are we in? Yeah, 2027.
2028. Well,
no, I'm saying that's when people usually start thinking about it, is like end of the year before. You know, that's when they would first start thinking about it. When I say like, no, we need to start now.
You know, that hit me. That hit me earlier today. Like, I feel like this election cycle started when Donald Trump walked into UFC at MSG last year. And this cycle ends with him walking into MSG for UFC in about 8 days.
How beautiful.
I love year-long storytelling.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what we need to do. We can't just put our hands up and say, "Oh, I'm just going to fucking drink wine for the next 4 years." Absolutely not. Let the Republicans do their thing. We will react when necessary. If they're doing fucked up shit, the ACLU will step in, that kind of stuff. And in the meantime, the same way, fucking Christian nationalists were having little, parties where they were making plans. Let's get together as a community. Let's make plans and let's figure out, someone that we can all as a group get excited about and start giving them the stage and setting the stage for them to be successful and coming together as a group and deciding on what policies we want to protect or instate and running for local government and keep voting in smaller elections and the next time that you show up to the polls or fill out a ballot should not be in 2028. It should be soon. All these things. There's plenty of work to do. Plenty of work to do always. And again, I wish Donald Trump a presidency. I would say a fruitful presidency, but I don't wish him a fruitful presidency. That's no bueno. I wish the people who voted for Donald Trump and all Americans a fruitful presidency under the presidency of Donald Trump. I hope he remains a president and does not make himself king. And I hope he does for you what you wanted him to do, as long as that doesn't include like hate. But I think some of it does, I want a better America for everyone, no matter whose party's president is in the White House. I really mean that, All right. So thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Without a Country, this post-election day episode. Very long, but we had so much to talk about. Thanks to everyone who called in. Thanks to all my Patreons. If anyone wants to join and help fund the show and all the work we do and the events that we put on, and maybe I got to do some more events, not just midterms and election day. So that notice for myself too. You can head over to patreon.com/withoutacountry. You can email me withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. Please follow me on all social media at Philanthropy Gal and Mike at Them Harrington, aka VM Harrington. And we got lots of work to do, no matter what party we're in, or if we're not in a party at all. And we still got to find Shelley Miscavige. Where is she? We don't know. Can a president do that? I would love to know. I'm sure the president could find out if they needed to. All right. Peace. Be kind to each other. Have a good one. Bye.